$1,840. That's your checking account balance the night of your college graduation party. Everyone else is posting photos in cap and gown, tagging each other, writing captions about the next chapter. You're in the bathroom of your parents' house, scrolling your banking app, doing math nobody taught you how to do. Tuition is paid off, barely, through scholarships and 2 years of weekend shifts you never mentioned to anyone. But $1,840 is what 4 years bought you in liquid cash. That, and a piece of paper, and a job offer starting in 6 weeks at $52,000 a year. You don't know it yet, standing in that bathroom in a cap you're about to take off and never wear again. But this is the night the timer starts. Not the job, not the diploma. This exact moment, age 22, is the most valuable financial real estate you will ever own, and almost nobody tells you that while you're standing in it. Quick note before we keep going, this video is for education, not financial advice. Every number here is illustrative, built to show how compounding actually behaves over time. Talk to a licensed advisor before making decisions with your own money. Here's the part nobody puts in a graduation speech. At 22, a dollar invested has roughly 40 years to compound before retirement. At 32, that same dollar has 30. The difference between starting now and starting in your 30s isn't a head start. It's a meaningful chunk of your eventual outcome, gone, just from waiting. You don't fully understand this yet. You will. 6 weeks later, your first paycheck lands. $1,620 after taxes every 2 weeks. That works out to roughly $3,510 a month once you average it out. Your roommate, Priya, immediately wants to know if you're coming to Tulum in March. Group rate, $640 a person. Everyone's already paid their deposit except you. You say you'll think about it. You don't think about it the way she means. You open a spreadsheet instead, the same night, alone, the way most of these decisions actually get made. Quietly, with a laptop, not in a group chat. You write it all out. Rent split with Priya, car payment and insurance, gas, phone, groceries, the usual stuff that doesn't make for an interesting story. You add it up, $2,710 in expenses. That leaves $800 a month that isn't already spoken for. This is the first time in your life that sentence has ever been true. You don't go to Tulum, you tell Priya you're saving for something, which is vague and true at the same time. Not all $800 goes into savings. Some months it's a flight home, a friend's wedding gift, just living. But you start automatically moving $400 of it into a savings account the day your paycheck lands. You also open a Roth IRA that Tuesday on your lunch break from your phone in about 11 minutes and put in $200. It feels like nothing. It is mathematically almost everything. By the end of the year, between the automatic transfers and a few extra months where you save more than usual, your savings account holds $1,200. You've cleared the $1,000 emergency fund milestone people talk about, with a little room to spare. At 23, HR sends out the open enrollment email, the one with a subject line boring enough that half the company deletes it without reading. You almost do too. But there's a line in there about a 401k match. Your company puts in $1 for every dollar you do, up to 4% of your salary. You sit with that for a second. Free money sitting in a drop-down menu, waiting for someone to notice it. You set your contribution to 4% and don't think about it again until your next paycheck, where it's already smaller and you adjust without really feeling it. That same spring, you also do something dumber. A coworker won't stop talking about a coin he bought that's about to 10x, and you put $600 into it off his recommendation, mostly because you're tired of being the cautious one in every conversation. 6 weeks later, it's worth $240. You don't tell anyone. You sit with that loss the way you sat with the $1,840 in the bathroom. Quietly, alone, doing math you don't like. It's not the money that stings most. It's realizing you almost let a coworker's confidence replace your own spreadsheet. You don't touch anything like it again. By the time the year wraps between your own 401k contribution, the match, and the Roth you've kept feeding all year, you've still sent close to $7,000 into accounts you'll never touch for decades. The $360 you lost chasing a tip stings, but it doesn't move the bigger number much, and it teaches you something the spreadsheet never could. Your day-to-day savings grow slower now that some of the surplus has a new job to do. You end the year around $3,400, still climbing, just at a different pace. The car problem arrives at 24, on a Sunday, predictably. transmission. The shop quotes $2,100. 3 years earlier, this would have meant a credit card and a slow, humiliating crawl back to zero over 8 months of minimum payments and interest eating the bill alive. Instead, you transfer the money from savings, you authorize the repair, and you feel something you don't have a name for yet. Not relief exactly, something flatter and steadier than relief. You rebuild the fund over the following months, ending the year at $4,500 in savings, having never touched the 401k or the Roth to cover it. At 25, your salary moves to $61,000 after a promotion. This is the fork in the road that quietly determines the next decade. Lifestyle creep doesn't arrive as a decision. It arrives as a series of small, reasonable-sounding upgrades. A nicer apartment, alone this time, no roommate, $1,450 a month. A car that's actually yours, financed at $410 a month over 60 months. New furniture because the old futon doesn't fit the new place. None of these individually feels reckless. Together, they quietly absorb most of the raise. You catch it in October, the same way you caught everything else. A spreadsheet, alone, at night. Your contribution rate never moved when your paycheck got bigger. You bump it up, more than doubling what you're sending in each month, and the difference shows up immediately in what hits your checking account. You adjust. It's uncomfortable for about 6 weeks, and then it isn't, because your spending simply resizes itself around what's left, the way it always does when you remove the choice. By year's end, between the bigger contribution, the match, and the Roth, just over $11,000 has gone into your future instead of your present. Savings keep growing too, just slower with the new rent. You end the year around $6,000. At 26, your friend Devon buys a brand new truck, $58,000 financed at 7.2% over 72 months. He shows you on his phone, genuinely excited, and you're happy for him, you mean it. But you've done enough spreadsheets by now to instinctively run the number in your head while he's talking. At that rate and term, the monthly payment comes out to just under $1,000, and over 6 years he'll pay back roughly $71,600 total for a truck worth a fraction of that by the time it's paid off. About $13,600 of it is pure interest. You don't say any of this out loud. You just notice the gap between what something costs and what it's worth, the way you'd notice weather. You drive home in your 4-year-old Civic and you feel something you've started recognizing by now. Not superiority, just clarity. Your own invested accounts, same contribution rate as last year, growth compounding quietly underneath, cross $40,000 combined sometime that fall. Savings end the year at $8,500. At 28, the market drops 16% over 5 months. You watch real numbers shrink in real time. The same accounts you've protected and nurtured for 6 years suddenly worth thousands less on paper. You check the app every day for 2 weeks, then force yourself to stop, the way you'd stop checking a wound to let it heal. You keep contributing on schedule automatically, buying shares at lower prices without fully believing it's the right move. By the following spring, the accounts have recovered, and then some. You didn't do anything clever, you just didn't panic, which turns out to be the entire skill. Savings, untouched by any of it, reached $13,500. At 29, your mother calls about a roof repair she can't afford. $4,300, a number she says carefully, the way people say numbers they're embarrassed to need help with. You tell her not to worry about it. You transfer the money the next day from savings without touching your investments, without debt, without the months of quiet resentment that would have come with putting it on a card 5 years earlier. Your savings balance dips to $11,200 and climbs back to $12,000 by year end. This is the moment you understand fully what any of this was actually for. Not the number on the screen. The ability to say, "I've got it," and mean it, without it costing you your own footing. You turn 30 on a Saturday. Before coffee, before your phone, you lie in bed and think about the bathroom at your parents' house, the cap you never wore again, the $1,840 that felt like both nothing and everything. Then you check the numbers, invested accounts, $88,669, savings, $12,000, combined just over $100,000 built from a starting position of basically zero, built from skipping one trip to Tulum, from a 12-minute onboarding video, from not buying the truck, from staying in the market when it dropped, and staying boring when it would have been easier to be impressive. According to the Federal Reserve's most recent survey of household finances, the median net worth for households under 35 sits around $37,000. You're sitting at close to 3 times that, not because you earned some extraordinary salary, not because of an inheritance or a lucky bet, but because you started 8 years before most people even think to, and you let the math run quietly in the background while you lived an otherwise completely normal life. So if you're 23 right now reading this with $400 in your checking account and a friend group already planning a trip you can't quite afford, here's the actual answer to the question you came here with. It was never about having extra money to invest. It was never about waiting until you made more, until the timing felt right, until the number felt big enough to matter. The $200 you put in at 22 wasn't impressive. It wasn't supposed to be. It was just early. And early, compounding quietly for decades while you live your actual life, beats clever every single time. Start with whatever's left after rent this month, even if it's $50. Automate it before you can talk yourself out of it. The goal was never to become rich. It was to never again have to say, I can't afford to help. That's the whole thesis behind this channel. Building an ownership mindset instead of a paycheck-to-paycheck one unglamorous spreadsheet at a time. If that's where you're trying to get to, hit follow. There's more of this every week, and I actually want to know, what's the number in your account right now that you're avoiding looking at? Tell me in the comments. That's usually where it starts.